so this may be my last video until I go back to, and then I restart with the real game. Because to some extent, the beginning of the game is where the slow train rush really kind of shows up, and I'm not sure how much I want to grind through. We'll see. So I looked at all the players. The FDR is the first player. Now this is a point in the game, with it so slow in the trains coming out, where I'm not really sure full capitalization is a terrible advantage. The partial cap has some real circumstances in its favor. So I don't think there's any real lining for that. And in particular, the FDR is the first player. He can partial cap at this point in the game. He can set the share value higher, generate more shares that'll be split between, and in fact he may not even 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, he has enough room that he could still do a chartered company. But I'm interested in the NBS, which starts here. I almost certainly want to buy it because it has a freight. No, shit. The N and B. Oh, shit. Maybe I don't want to buy it. It's the only company that connects to me. It has a freight train. Running 2 freight trains is particularly not all that exciting in my view, so I probably actually don't want a company. We already talked about that. I don't know why, but I was looking and thought it had something that matched with me nicely, like a local. It does not. What I am interested in is actually the INB, and that is the only one that I'm really interested in. The others I can't connect to, or don't have in the case of the NNB, I don't have the correct connection type, the correct train type. The only other person who's interested in starting a train is the ENR. He looks at the board and says, well, the FDR might start a company, but you know what? The ENR would be perfectly happy with either the WSTL or the LNH. No one else really has the kind of cash to start a company. Now, the NNE could. He's got a couple $100. I think that allows you to. No, that allows you to buy a 3 share. You need 54 times 5 is 220. And I'm just a little short. If money's open, which it probably should be. Definitely convinced of that. He doesn't have enough money. This guy actually does, but he's already got 2 companies. Probably isn't going to want to do it. Although actually fully capitalizing one of them might make sense. ENH and WVR, why am I not connecting already? Let me just take a look. Because we're separated across the board from each other. And we might be able to connect up. Starting another company might allow me, like say the L&D, which is available, might allow me to hook these corporations together. I've not seen anybody do that, have 3 companies running at the same time with the intention of merging them all together or whatever. But this track is turning out to be rather, basically the release of the companies is turning out to be rather painful. But that doesn't look like a terrible plan. So yeah, I don't think anybody is going to do a parliament. I made a roll for this guy, just because of it. Well, let us consider him. Because if I have 266, not quite. Seriously? 250, yeah, 270. Okay. I miscalculated there. Yeah, so he doesn't have enough cash even, and he has the most cash on hand. Other people have some shares that they could sell, but so far nobody has any real desire for that second company at this point. Let me just make sure. Let me think about this. Because the L&D, I mean, he doesn't want to fully capitalize, so yeah, he was making that decision. But I got to think about the L&D, which has a local, which I'm not entirely opposed to. Starts here. I could hook that up conceivably. Not entirely appealing. Maybe. End of the stock round, and here we have the purchase. Now, yeah, I'll get to that in a moment. This guy ends up with the priority deal, even though he started the company, which is kind of weird. But that big 30% share means you can get away with ending up with priority if other people buy a couple shares. 4 tokens total. We'll see both of the companies started with 4 tokens total. In both cases, it was kind of I absolutely need 3 tokens. I'm sure there's a 4th one I'll need, or I'll want. And they're cheap. They're only $40 each because of the partial cap or non-chartered. So that's kind of appealing. Other people picking up some investment materials. Here, for example, buying an FDR. Well, one FDR is kind of cool. It's cheap, and it's going to get me into the L&D. That's going to actually, I'm probably not going to lose much money when I buy that. And it gets me a share that I'll get a run off of at the very least. If it doesn't merge, yeah, then I mean, okay, but overall I'm probably better. That was actually purchased from the corporation. Other people did not purchase from the corporation. That's actually probably a mistake. My thinking was, wow, it's really annoying to take them, to put money in the corporation. If you want to hold the stock, it's not good for you, right? Because that corporation's more likely to pay out the more shares it has in it. And so, short-term investment, you're better off buying. You're better off just buying the share out of the bank pool. However, to hurt someone else who's got a lot of shares in something, and we've got a WNR got purchased here out of the bank pool. Had that been purchased from the corporation, would it make a difference? Probably not. He's got a lot of cash in here. It would mean a little bit less money later in the game, because he would not get the money back from this run. Plus, he loses the stock improvement. So that probably should have been purchased out of the bank, out of the corporate treasury. And same thing with the N&E. He's got a wad of cash. He's probably not going to swallow. But yeah, it's a pretty minor consideration overall. It is something that, if I was playing opposed, I probably would be buying out of the corporate treasuries rather than out of the open market, just because I'm a dick. And we move to the operating round. The rails have been kind of uninteresting. N&E and the N&S, both making their same runs. N&E built some track that, I don't know, but had a hard time deciding, do I want to play a dot? Here's one of the problems with the N&E. Until I know what I'm merging with, if I'm merging again, there's a maximum of 7 dots allowed on the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got one more. It kind of doesn't matter. I probably don't want to merge, but I'm not sure what my eventual run is going to be. It might turn out that there's a space that I want. So even if I merge with another corporation, one thing it would allow is for me to get rid of some excess dots. Like if I decide this one's not useful, I could peel that off during a merger. If I was playing with the optional 8 dots, that would be a different matter. But it's one reason you don't want to multiple merge companies. One merge can get you most of your dots. Over here for the N&S, I grabbed, although I can't use it, the London token. Those are incredibly important. And by doing that, I'm kind of putting the hammer down on the FDR, which doesn't have it yet, but is set up for it. But the N&S may well want that. That counts as both the token and the track lay, so that's an expensive play. But I figured this is going to open up at some point, and I'll want to get my last dot in there. NR being kind of dicky. Probably not going to get to London with only one space open, but we'll see. But I do want to get down to these riches if I can, so I dropped this dot down, but also played this track, which screws the L&D for its chance of connecting up with the FDR, at least in the near future. There might be other ways, but it's just like, hey, screw that, man. I've got an FDR share. I gotta just let that run, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm kind of hurting myself, but it is preventing another line from getting down there and causing issues, although FDR has a dot there, so I may be actually hurting myself. The run improved a little bit, not much. And now I'm going to buy the first of the the C trains or whatever, which kills my A, but the reason for it is someone else is liable to buy this. So all the A's are going to die as I give myself a bigger freight train. And we should see some increases in runs for me, and overall some problems for other companies. PR runs itself into a little bit of a problem here. It didn't have a train, so it falls back to 68, like some stupid track that doesn't really help. But I'm gonna get to buy my express train. I could have bought it here, but then I'm in trouble because I still don't have the cash here, and you have to pay full price for a train. And you're not allowed to buy an enforced purchase train if you have to raise capital from one of your companies. So I had to actually wait for my own. There was no real reason to. I certainly didn't want to bring, get this cheaper train because I'd rather have the permanent train if somehow it came out, I guess. However, that means I have to come up with $380, and I have most of that, but most isn't enough. So I get to sell a share for 68. $68 brings this to 75, and I make the change and come back. I think we're going to see a merger in a moment. I screwed up. Let me get off camera and try to figure this shit out. Something's fucked. Only 280. That's where the problem is. I'm fine. Okay, so that goes there, and I do not crash, and now I can do the merger. Yeah, this illness is making my brain work worse than usual, I think. It's hard to tell. Okay. Now, I cannot merge because I'm still not connected. The track lays that are sitting out there, until the Browns come out, I have no way to cross the divide. I can say conceivably I could have crossed to here and then across here and over or something. I'm counting on being able to bust my way through with the Browns as really the only option. Okay, so that'll put me on the poor FDR, which is also without a train. Screech. FDR is also screwed out of connecting to the L&D. The plan was to cut through there. That's not going to work anymore because someone was a dick. Hey, shit happens. Again, I could try working through here. There's no guarantee that's going to work. So I'm just upgrading my run. Maybe not the best time to do it, but we'll see. Don't have tokens, can't go into London. So that's the end of the stock round. Now, what we're seeing here is probably why no XX game that actually exists is this kind of restrictive on what trains you can run. Because, yes, players could have bought a crappy Phase B train in order to avoid this crash, but if they're not making much extra money off of those extra trains, it's a really hard sell, and it's better to just maybe take the crash. But now, we're seeing this almost endemic set of train crashes. And this is one of the things I wanted to highlight. Now, I did not see this shit when I was playing in 8, because there was enough trains coming out that stuff was mobile enough, and maybe we saw a couple train crashes early in the game, but for the most part what we saw was people creating mergers right away And I think we saw very, very few of these cases where companies were losing all their trains, especially all their A trains. So here we're seeing, the A trains going away, but the A trains that were going away were either under warranty when they did, I think one of them was, or otherwise already covered, and so the company still got a run, just not as good a run as it would have. So, yeah, once again, trying to play this particular misunderstanding of the rules with only 6 players just does not work. Not only did it create that horribly static start to the game, it has also created kind of this. This is the kind of play that we saw when we first bought 1830, and people were like, I don't know if getting that second train is worth that much. There's big trains that are worth a lot. I think I'll hold and play very conservatively. We certainly had people who were doing that at a very, very heavy degree. No one was really, like, oh, I can buy all the trains that I can possibly afford, space-wise, money-wise, whatever, and run the shit out of them. We didn't know that yet. So we saw exploration on closer to this side of the game, and it's really, really terrible play. An E here cut down to 1 train is now only making 13 a share. That's my bucks for my local run going in here. Now, my stock price is too high, but if I pay an extra 30 bucks, I'll be getting 9 of that back, raise the share price, and pay out some money to myself using the Hudson maneuver. You can only do that to bring yourself up to single payout, but it seems worthwhile here. From what I can tell, you've never used this Hudson maneuver to keep your company's shares afloat all the time, but every now and then it's just worth it. You're not paying that much out of your corporate money into your dividends or whatever. But the difference is, in the real case, from what I understand about it, not that this matters anything towards the game, but what we were looking at was essentially something like a Ponzi scheme. He was taking the value of the corporation, the actual assets of the corporation, and converting them into stock payouts, which raised the value of the stock itself, got money into people's hands, and was keeping the company just continuously doing this. And then it went bankrupt from doing it. It was essentially not quite a Ponzi scheme, because I don't think he kept releasing more shares. That would be the pure Ponzi scheme. There is, you keep printing more and more shares, but I'm not even sure he wasn't doing that. You tend to do that kind of thing when you get into that kind of cycle. On the other hand, in this game, you're not trying to, boost the stock prices continuously. You're just taking some short-term push to maintain your stock value, and it feels like a very different thing. Anyway, I got tons of money. Given the way this game is being played, we're gonna buy ourselves one of these express trains, and that'll get our runs back up again. I gotta look to make sure that I don't want a dot and that I don't have any track that I need to play for that train. Yeah, I do things in the wrong order, but once you make your decisions, it's easier. It's easier to go back and undo other things than it is to think in advance. This is in kind of an interesting position. They just bought the last of the local trains. Had I swallowed instead of paying out, I think I still wouldn't have been able to buy this next train that's here. And that's kind of a shame. That would have been an interesting maneuver to get one of the first permanent trains, one of the first cheap permanent trains. So it was 180 bucks. Instead of 40% of that, I would be getting the additional 60%. So I would have another 108 bucks. Yeah, you know what? I actually think a Swallow is worth it there. So I'm going to reverse the money that I paid out for that and take that all into the Swallow so I can buy an additional train. I got to figure out which one I want, whether I want the local or the freight, and that will inform what this additional train is. So I'm pushing the trains out a little harder than I have the capacity to run under this variant. Now, under the actual rules, you wouldn't worry about that. You'd be like, oh yeah, I can, I can run all three of those trains. The other thing is, this does not kill anything. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because this B train goes away when we get to this train. Okay, comparison of the two possible runs. Let's put this dot here because we want it. Is if I run the freight train between here and here, and then the local train just over here, that gets me 51 a share. I get 45 a share if I run the freight train from here to here, and then I don't get to double count this. So, but I have to connect back to my home. So then I run the local here. That gets me to about 45. So I am better off with the big freight train than the little local train. And again, I can only run two trains the way I'm playing. So, but that'll get me that'll get me less money in the company treasury each turn. This is going to have a whole bunch of money available to it, so it might be able to get its second permanent train real quick. WNR is set up with a couple of trains running on it. If I upgrade this, which is what I'm going to do, I can make 34 a share, which just barely gets me enough money to buy this train if I pay out. So if I wanted to swallow, or if I didn't want to buy a permanent train at this point, I could have done something more interesting. My first thought was upgrade this because there's a limited number of those brown tiles. I'll probably get that one. Another thought would be to upgrade whatever this is, Ipswich, Colchester, I don't remember which is which. That one's Ipswich. Yeah, because it's the special one. If I upgrade Ipswich, that would open up a dot for me, and I could have placed my last remaining dot there. That's potentially powerful. However, I'm out of dots, basically, so I'd have to get a merger to get into this area, or on an upgrade of this to get through there. One of those two would work for me to get me to London, and then I'd still need another dot here. I think it's unlikely I'm going to get to London, but it would have been a possibility. I'm throwing that away probably at this point. It's probably almost... but I'm getting a train, and honestly, other than London, it's not worth doing that. London is the only reason to be working that hard on the track. So yeah, and I also have to figure out which train I want to replace, right? Because I probably want to replace the crappier B train, but it's quite possible that I'm expecting the B to go away anyway, and maybe the C. Things seem to be falling pretty quickly right now, so maybe the run is not that big a deal. The 34 share is kind of cool because it puts me 2 forward. I'll give it that much. L&D is able to hook itself up so that it is now able to merge. We don't want to do it now because the FDR hasn't run yet, so we'd deprive it of its run after we laid our our L&D track. We wouldn't get its train, we wouldn't get its run. But here's what's cool. We definitely do want to link the two. If we swallow, and only if we swallow, we get $110 into our company treasury, which, along with the fact that we had a local train, got us some extra money. We end up with enough cash to just precisely buy ourselves a train. Now, we have to think here, because we may want to buy a train for the FDR instead. This comes down to, do we want the 4 local or the 5 local? Do we want the 5 freight or the 7 freight? Because we're going to be looking at those 2 trains, Unfortunately, the FDR, unless trains crash, isn't going to be able to buy a train. And if it is able to buy a train, I don't have much money, so it's going to have to be like a stock reduction thing, which that doesn't sound pleasant. And we don't have a whole hell of a lot of cash in there either, so that's not enough to cover this. We could see a bankruptcy on the FDR. And that would be a hell of a line to be thrown out there for someone to buy. Now, he's got the priority again, but he's making no money. Exceedingly conservative train rush that occurred because, of these, the way that I'm misplaying that, has caused something kind of interesting. I pointed this out before. It's similar to the first time I played 1830. It's not an interesting game. Like, at first, when I first played 1830, I thought, oh, this is the coolest thing. And it blew my mind on it because there were people who were playing very, very conservatively, thinking, if I save up, I'll be better. Because that's generally the case in games, right? You don't necessarily want to spend all your money to make money in situations. You want to keep some in reserve. You want to hoard. And that kind of impulse benefits some players, doesn't benefit, others, whatever. I don't know what happened with me. I ended up buying lots of trains but not a huge amount, just more than other people were, because I was like, oh, I can make money and they're not going to keep falling. But what we're seeing is the train rush is starting to happen, and it's real, and it's going to crush people. But it's actually going to crush them probably harder than the train, and maybe multiple times, than the train rush would in the real game. This is one of the things that makes it kind of uninteresting. If you get screwed early on in cash or in initial setup and judging the train rush, you get screwed really hard. It's like making the really bad train decisions that might happen, like buying a pair of 4 trains in 1830 or something like that, which could just absolutely hose you for the rest of the game. Or buying the last 3 in the first and a 4. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. The 2-4 trains is horrible, but anyway, those are situations where somebody's too aggressive with the trains, and you're kind of like, well, they deserve what they got. But here, it's the people who are being kind of cautious, but are not making money. And now they're going to get sliced up and hosed if they can't figure out a way to turn this merger into something that happens, for example, getting this money together. And even if they do, that's one non-permanent train with not a whole lot of money. Now, there's some stock I can sell, but yeah, it's not appealing. And you don't want to sell that stock after the merger because it'll go down in value and hurt the company more. Without the flexibility to buy those additional trains and increase the pace of the train rush, you're actually in a worse situation, I think. The game is more static, but it has the capacity to do greater damage to players in a very static sort of way. All right. What am I at? So I chose to go with the local train. It was basically you know what? I don't want a 5 train because if the FDR is running out of here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, that doesn't really get me very far. So, I mean, I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not bad. That's actually really appealing. Jesus. That's the run I'm set up for. If I can just get the damn token down. Of course, I can't merge at the beginning of my turn. This dot might not happen. Who's going to get it instead of him? N and E is out of dots, but might merge and have one. Probably at high cost. But these can open up. Jesus, I don't know. I'm burning my brain trying to guess what the situation. And this is the thing: you try to project what the situation is likely to happen. So, if I can get the London to here run, on a freight run, that is worth having. So I am going to go with that instead. That hurts my next L&D run. I would have had a better L&D run with a 4 train, obviously. The 2-3 is kind of shitty. The 4 could run. 1 has to run there. 2, 3, and then either here or here, depending on what's hooked up or whatever. This is clearly more valuable, but I may not want to lay the track for that. Or I'm getting a couple of doinkers and everything. Plus I'm getting more cash into my company treasury, but that 5 train is appealing, and I may be happier with a bigger local train. Forget some rules that I haven't messed up, which is the warranties. Those go out automatically on those 5 trains. Nobody really had the cash on hand to buy a second warranty. This might not be a bad time for it. When do these die? These die way back here. I doubt we're going to see that much of a rush. Here I've got an ugly problem. The L and H could merge with the ENR at this point. The ENR shares would be at half value though, which greatly degrades the value I'd have. So I'd be at 45 plus 50, 95. I'd basically lose half my stock value if I merge to a corporation with no train. But if I don't, then what? Well, I'm running a B train, and the B train is real close to dying. He's already dead. I kind of need to merge soon. I can probably get away with it. Yeah. So the nice thing is I've got these 2 companies running right next to each other. So I can probably manage to do it, but I might not end up with the company headquarters where I want it. But I think I'm more likely to get it there than there. So that doesn't look too bad. All right. And I'm sorry for the amount of thinking that I'm doing. Part of it is I don't think many people are going to be watching these suckers anymore. I've, gone off the rails in terms of the rules. And I don't know, everybody's stuck at home. Maybe they'll listen to this garbage anyway. All right, the ENR, the L&H went. The ENR has no train crashes. Laid some track. We paid out with the L&H, which maybe is a mistake, but whatever. I have to buy this train. Which means I got some problems anyhow. One of my problems is that I better have some shares that give me enough money. So I need $360. I have $200, but I can get $64 by selling these 2 shares. They're considered at full price because it is going to get a train, so I can pick up that train. The 5 freight is good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It does what I want it to. I'm not happy with where my companies are going, but yeah. And this puts me in kind of the worst of possible situations, except, yeah, I think I have to merge now. The reason being, if I don't merge now, I'm going to have this train hit. Is that terrible? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shares of L&H. They're worth 110 each. That's 550. I got enough cash that I can pay that out if I dump all those shares. Now, yeah, that drops my share value again. So then those are my two choices. I may not be able to get a train if I merge, but I could buy my own trains. I'm not going to have a lot of cash. Wow, I'm pretty shit out of luck, am I not? Oh, these people buying 5 trains, I think they're permanent, but they're not. This is these D trains. These are the 4 trains, essentially. These are not 5s. Wow, people all excited about getting them, and they're just pieces of garbage, really. Oops. Boy, are people in trouble. Yeah. But getting an actual permanent train for cheap would be. See, I see the brown, and I'm like, oh, brown track. That's a permanent train. Yeah, no. And it sort of isn't, because it's the E that turns you to brown here, but whatever. God damn, I don't know. I shouldn't be thinking this hard. I should just clean this thing up, because it's so obviously going to be a disaster for so many people. But I kind of like watching these train wrecks happen. Even though I say the game's uninteresting, the effects of like all these crashes are going to be really neat. But yeah, what happens if I merge? If I merge, I'm going to have a harder time turning these shares into. I'm going to wait and not merge. Though I think that may be really stupid. The reason being, I have more share value here to buy that next train. That is going to be a forced purchase. Do I have $600? That's a good question. 5 of these, $550. Yeah, I have $600, so I can buy the next train up, which will really be pushing the limit. Yeah. Should put this one up here. There's an infinite number of these. Yeah, we're not going to merge, but I'm not. I don't think anything good is happening here. E and HWVR, again, sitting next to each other, but that means less when you have mergers. It would be cool to merge them. They can't, though. They don't connect. Can the E and H connect them? Yeah, I think it actually could. I could build this track. But then I still can't merge before they run, which means I'll be merging after the WVR runs. That doesn't give me an opportunity to buy a train at this point. And I'm almost certainly not going to be able to buy a train. Now, I probably want to set it up for the merger, but how do I want to do it? I don't know. I probably want to make the most money I can, which means an upgrade here first. And upgrade this with the WVR and lay the track in there. But that means these guys are frozen out. And again, they're sitting on crappy little trains without enough cash, unable to buy the next train without taking advantage of some other capability. If they had a couple of trains on them, they could do a swallow, pull in enough cash, like a couple of freight trains could do a decent sized run. A couple of expresses, not as impressive as it would be in a normal XX game where you get to count your big city twice. So I'd be able to, maybe hit this twice or something. I don't know, but yeah. Whew. Don't know the answer, but I think we're just heading off the cliff with everyone else. Bunch of lemmings. Now the big question again: do I want to make this paper, these shares, worthless? Do I want to cut them in half, essentially, in terms of value, by making the merger now? I'm set up to do it. I've got some cash on the two companies, but they don't really cooperate well together. I'm used to making the merger with a whole lot of reserve cash on them because maybe it's floated as a charter or it's floated high as a non-chartered. But these companies, at least compared to what's being required of them, but these companies are just not sitting on enough for what they are. Not enough shares were subscribed to give me a lot of cash. If I don't, I probably have enough money to buy the next train on the ENH. Which again, this is why people have not been doing mergers. There's advantages to doing the merger. And if I make it to the next round and have both trains, I can do the merger immediately before. Except, here's the problem. Then I end up with my capital here on the ENH. Is that better or worse than the WVR? I don't know. I rather like the idea of of the freight train running down here. And this is another thing. I can make damn good money. So that 2 freight train can go 1, 2 into here. And that makes a run now of 1821 on its own. And then, well, then I don't get this, my biggest city, on the 3 express train, which kind of hurts. But I have to hit it too. That's the other ugly part of it. I mean, I guess I don't absolutely have to. I could run up here or something. That doesn't look too terrible. That's probably at least as good unless I get a token in London, in which case I would be running. Oh, that's an express. 1, 2, 3, and that would make more money, which is also appealing. Yeah, I don't know. Like, my run definitely improves if I can do the merger, but I don't think I can afford to give away that much cash out of the company. Otherwise, I'll be stuck with like 1 crappy train with two permits and no real easy way forward. So I just don't see an answer for these companies, which will put us over on the FDR. And yeah, I'll run that sucker. The problem with the FDR, I don't have a token. I would love to place my token here. I'm all set up for it. I've got that 5 freight train, which can run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with no problem. But I don't have the token there. And my tokens are sitting on the L&D. I wasn't able to merge in such a way that because I had to lay the track to set up for the merger. And now the merger's broken again? No, it still goes through here, sort of. I've got to get those guys merged quickly. Maybe now, maybe at the end of this turn. But what I'd like to be doing is get my dot there, but someone else could upgrade this, get the dot there, and then I'm closed out of London. And that would suck. It's not, absolutely devastating, but it's pretty painful. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's the run that I'm set up for. And I don't exactly have the best cash on hand, but I'm gonna have to crush these 2 together. And even with that little 3 train, I was still making 21 a share, which got me a big jump in share price, 3 spaces actually, which is going to help. I have to do the merger. It's going to help me maintain some stock value out of the merger. If we refinance, we get $1,000. But yeah, you can see the shares. My share value overall has dropped, even though it went up to 128 a share. I got a whole lot less certificates. This guy's got to decide if he's buying at 64 or taking some cash. Here's the 2 questions. Does he want this certificate in his hand? That extra cash doesn't mean much to him. However, he's low on the priority list. So the real question here is, does he want an FDR in hand or not? Is there an opportunity to buy one if he does? Which I think the answer is yes. If he's spending that cash, then he has less money available to charter a company. and he may need to charter a company. So I think this is one of those times, because I'm at the end of the operating round, where there's very little reason to keep this, even though I just lost some cash on it. So I'll take 64 bucks on that. And it's not a sale. It's not exercising the option. So the option itself is worth something to me, but it doesn't actually affect the stock price. So entering into the Parliament phase, the FDR player does not have enough cash to float another corporation. This is a problem because he doesn't have the money to really run that one well. He's sitting on 3 non-permanent trains, one which has a warranty that's probably not going to come into use. He's probably going to get to run that train without the warranty coming into play. It does not have a lot of money on it either. It has 84 bucks worth of shares on it, which, that puts me to 400. Not enough to buy any of these. If people buy up those shares, it won't be prepared. It won't be able to run 2 trains over the course of things. It might get a chance to run. He might get a chance to add money in later. Right now, he's in no position to do so, to do much. This guy over here, he actually has enough money to float another corporation, to subscribe one. So if he really wanted one, and I'm not sure yet, he could start one at 68. That would involve selling the ENR share and getting 50% of a corporation. And he has some extra money, so he could put a bid in. Is there something he's dying to have here? Well, he's got enough money for a permanent train, I think. But only one. Which makes a merger a possibility. $680 for a fully capitalized company is enough to buy probably another one of these other permanent trains. It's an appealing thought. It would crash my stock value, though. Got to think about it. Looking through, this guy could have started something. He chose not to. He would not choose to start what's coming up. Everyone else is either too low on money to float a chartered corporation, or, well, everyone else is too low. This was really the only guy who could. This guy probably has enough cash he could. Why did he not? Because he's got a merger online already. Does that make sense? Is that an argument? Hold on, let me go back and think about him. Because I got to the WNR owner, and he's like, yes, I want one, and yes, I want it to be the INB. But this guy may need it. So what he has is the WVR here, and the E and H. And actually they are hooked up right now. So I've got a merger in hand ready to happen. However, I would really like the NG and C, or the I and B. This is the one I want. Or maybe the ECU. None of it matters. I have a freight in another train, so any of them would actually work for me. So let me roll a die for him, because I did not consider him. On odd, I will try to float one here. The reason being that I can put less money in and get more money right up front with that, full capitalized company. Yeah, he probably wants to. Let me see what he can do. But otherwise, he was going to float the I and B. Actually thinking that this guy wants, I don't know how many tokens I have. That's one of the problems here. So I have 3 on board, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all my tokens. So whatever I start wouldn't really count. I would get to discard some garbage tokens, is the main line for that. But do I want to do 3 merges when I already have an E&H freight run here, potentially one here instead, which could run to the WVR capital? I think I'm best off sitting, investing, and seeing what happens. Which means we do get back to here, and he's going to put the INB. The reason the INB is important is he pretty much has to go through this hex for his WNRs to be able to reach London. It's not a bad hex in and of itself. It adds another local train, but that would mean he'd be running 2 locals and a freight, which isn't terribly bad or good. Chances are he's got 2 trains max. We're just trying to get a permanent train on here, to tell you the truth. So I will refigure what he's going to start at, but I think it's like 68, which is not great. Actually has enough to float it at 100, which will push us down to the stock round. He's the only one. Nobody wanted to bid against him. He put a 0 bid in. He figured if everybody passed, chances are they didn't really want this. And I'm using it mainly as a funding source. You know, take some more stock hit in order, and that stock hit might get made up, right? But normally you come roaring out of these combinations with like more trains, better runs. We're not going to see that. Here we're trying to save companies by floating corporations. But anyway, we're able to float it at 100. I actually could have gone higher than that. I could have gone to 110 if I did it this way. But I'd rather have that extra cash. Maybe there'll be something cheap I can run on, which puts us back up here on priority. So as seems usual for this weirdness, not a lot has happened. He floated the INB out. Has a pile of money on it. Not $1,000 though. You know, I'm used to, hey, I get $1,000, that's 2 trains. No, I have to pay for those tokens. So you can't float a chartered company and buy 2 permanent trains with it. Ooh. Which is kind of interesting. That's something, you know, that's just a fantastic situation in 1830. Which makes other people not floating a public charter more sensible, actually, because had I been thinking along those lines specifically, which I wasn't, I would be like, oh yeah, I should be doing that. But then I noticed, well, I hadn't really been thinking about it, but then I noticed, hey, 500 is, wow, but no, I have to buy 2 tokens with a public charter. If you buy with a privately floated company, you could float it at $200 and have that $1,000, but again, you have to pay the tokens. But you could actually end up with more than the $1,000 that way. So, you know, and in fact, really, you could float it, I think, at 90 and end up, you know, no. You have to float it above 100. But there are values above 100 other than 200 that you could float it at and get a lot of cash into your corporation, where it could start out with 2 private, two trains to begin with. So, we got 1 new corporation starting over here, and a bunch of people who filled out portfolios with shares to make them money. So I'm expecting the next stock round to be a big deal if it's going to happen. We're going to see what the crashes look like though, because I'm expecting maybe to see some, maybe not. The point is, this is going to kill the B trains, and there are a few kicking around. Places like this, where if we don't get a merger off, we've got some problems. And then there's things like the N and E that are just flush with cash and probably will be buying themselves a permanent train at this point. So, and in fact, they'll probably be buying it on the first part of the operating round. We're up to 3 operating rounds at this point because we're in the brown, if I am correct. God, this doesn't tell me. See, I mean, I've just got certain assumptions here, but here's the thing. E through H is where we're in the russet here. This indicates, they call it russet. I call it brown here, but it's red here, so I don't know. Or orange at best. But this is clearly brown. So yeah, I'm going to have to look in the rules and see if we have actually 3 operating rounds. I assumed we did, but that's not absolutely clear. It'd be kind of useful if that information were carried in here, just because they're not matching the colors here to the colors here, and there's certain assumptions that are great to make, but once you start breaking some of them, you start throwing everything into question. Oh, Oh shit, we're already out of ends. I cheated, that's why. That should be the Ipswich one there. That's what happened. Yeah, I didn't think it was possible that I ran out. Yeah, that's all of them. It doesn't affect anything except there was some crappy track there. I wanted to upgrade. Yeah, indeed, there are 3 rounds. I wanted to do this upgrade, which I'll do for the enemy. A big 41 a share run, which got us a double movement up. Got us a bunch of cash, able to buy 1 train off of that. Not the second one, but enough to crash all the B trains, which is leaving some companies without a train, which is problematic, but we'll see how they recover from that. In some cases, it may be a situation where, hey, we got a lot of shares. We can just dump those shares, reduce our share value, but we have that cash in the company. It's going to hit the share price. The other option is, of course, maybe they have to do the exchanges, which loses you half your share value, which is probably worse than you'll suffer from selling off a bunch of shares. What do we got? There was something else I wanted to say. I got no dots. This was the one reason I wanted to merge that company, was get me some more dots, but I don't think there were any more. I think it's got all 7 on the board. There's an option to use an 8th dot. I think honestly I'm going to do it the next time I play, simply because the accumulation of a bigger, more powerful company feels like it's what the game's about, and so that 8th dot does actually feel like it should be there. They say it can lead to too harsh a game. I'm in favor of harshness. The R busts out big. It has 2 nice big trains. First of all, it's got the 3 train. Now, my initial thought was, hey, we'll run that 1, 2, 3. I can get a little bit more money by running 1, 2, 3. Now, this cuts so that my freight distance is only 13 plus 3. I don't get to count that extra hex that I moved through. That's okay. Because my 4 local then gets to run down here, and it squeezes me out like 3 extra bucks a share to do it that way. So that's kind of sweet. That gets me up to 500 bucks, 50 bucks a share, paying that shit out. No question. I'm worth 400 bucks in the bank, in the corporate treasury right there. I got almost enough money for another train, sitting there. And I've got a merger coming up that I wanted to make anyway. Plus my share value is going up, which means I'm going to be dragging the INB up another 100 bucks. I'm still going to lose half my share value. Mergers are devastating in terms of share value, but you can make a lot of that up. I need that extra money to get me additional trains, I think. On the other hand, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe part of the reason, though, is if I can slip down there. So we'll see what the odds of that look like. Maybe I just run the INB as a second company and just leave it up there and see what happens. I'm not sure yet. Because the WNR looks like it's cranking pretty well and probably can get itself a permanent train, even though that was kind of in doubt a little earlier on, and that's why I bought the INB. Okay. Here's what's crazy to me, and I didn't think this was the case. I thought you had to choose the closest point of entry on a red area, but when I went through the rules, I found this wasn't the case. The FDR managed to get its dot here. Hey, good thing it's moving quickly. NNE didn't have a dot. Would have had to merge at the beginning of the turn to get one. WNR couldn't make its way down. It had no real way to do so. It could have upgraded this instead of this, made less money, and gotten down to here. But that's it. It wouldn't be able to get in. It wouldn't be able to go through there. So it was blocked out. You know what? I could have gotten in by upgrading this. Right? No, because I'm not in here yet. That's why I can't. I haven't hooked up yet. Yeah. So indeed, I could not have possibly gotten through with the WNR. I thought I had fucked up there. And that means the FDR had its dot assured. Having merged to get tokens was definitely a good idea for that. And so I run my freight run. It's going to be 20 and 130. Great. That gets me to 33 a share. But now there's the remaining freight. And remember, I can only use a single one of those freight trains because I only have a single freight permit the way I'm playing. Okay, what I think it should be is a distance of 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry. Yeah, coming from here, 1, 2, 3. 3 intervening hexes, it should be 9. But if I can pick whichever exit I want to make, well, I guess it's got to be a connected one, so I'm going to pick this one. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 intervening hexes. I think that's completely bogus and unreasonable, but that is how this is worded. For off-board locations with more than one entry point, you may choose the point of entry when counting distance. Okay. Right? Yeah. It doesn't seem to limit. Now maybe this shows it can use either of these routes chosen. If traveling to the further area, the ECR scores all 3. Okay, so it looks like it actually has to be able to run the route, which means this is my only eligible one. So I only have the 30. The example clears that up. It's not any point of entry. It's one that you can reach. So if I could somehow connect this up, I would be allowed to use this run instead. Well, it wouldn't be that one. It would be, good God, something, maybe a sharp hook here. Yeah. So it's probably not going to happen, but I can increase what the distance is. But right now it's 1, 2, 3, so it's only 9. So 33 takes me to 42. And of course I want to pay that out. Maybe of course is the wrong word. I fucked up. A swallow would get me another train. A first permanent train. I think I'm undoing this, and I'm going to get the swallow. I thought of course, because, yeah, I just want to run the money. But I did not realize, yeah, that is enough that I could have bought this train. So let me undo that, because I had $100 on board. This is a company with a freight train, and it doesn't use this as an endpoint for the freight train. That a skip train is probably not necessary, but I want to make sure I get the local and the freight together so that I can end up with a couple permanent trains on that sucker running and just make it happy all game long if I can. Often I find myself saying, wow, I really wish I had a 4 or 5 instead of, a 4 or a 5 or whatever, even a 6, because I find myself wanting to hit and score the same, having to hit the same location with 2 of my trains, and having to score it with both of them. Freight trains make it easier to not hit all the to not count all the locations. So in this case, this one is part of my freight route. It's just a $30 hit there. It does not count against that local train. But in the long run, there are going to be times when you find that, you want that local train, or even more likely, if I had an express, you want that to be hitting the same locations, and you're just like, oh, great. What do I do? Well, you figure it out, as the case may be. And we may be eventually running the freight train up this way. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll be getting a bigger freight train, so we may want to run it up this way instead of to London. The problem with that, I don't have a train to run to London, and I just put my dot in London other than the freight train. What else is possible? Well, actually, no. We'll run from London up to a port up here. That's what we'll do. And it would have to come up this way. 1, 2, 3. think it's a 10 train, and there are no such creatures. But we might be able to hit this one, which is pretty good anyway. Which would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 8, 9. Both of which are interesting. Stupid me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can get an extra $30 on that run. I could see that as the NNS has the same run. That's why I noticed it with its 5 freight train. And what did we buy? Well, we also swallowed and forgot to pay the money. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, $600. I also bought a local train and dotted over here. My intention is to be running up here, although this might end up dotted out, and I may have to find other ways through to try to get the most dottage that I can. Blinkerage. Okay. And that puts us on the L&H with no train. Is this a new company? I hope so, because, yeah, because it looks like it hasn't done shit. So what about the L&H? Well, I'm going to lay a dot. It was not a new company, but I'm able to buy a permanent train by selling off some shares. Lost some stock value off it, no question. I need a token. Where do I need my token? So what I think I'm going to be running is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like I'm going to be running to there, which is not a bad place to run my freight. It's a 140 in the Midlands. I'm not going to be getting down here. There is no E&R dot down there. Those companies are probably established. So I have to make sure that I make it through here. Right now, I can make it through here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have a 7 train. I bought a freight train on the L&H. You can't run a freight train. It's allowed to buy it. I'm planning on that going on to the E&R. I think things are going to fall pretty quickly. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't get through there. 5, 6, 7. This actually looks like an important dot, but that's not. That can be upgraded to a 2-city. So the question is this more important? Or is this more important? I don't know the answer. For now, I'm going to drop it here. And I laid track that I probably don't want. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would like to get, I don't know. This is an extra $10 if I can get down here. This N doesn't really matter, unless I'm running my local through there. So yes, this dot is absolutely important to me, but my track upgrade may not be the one I want to make. The reason I made this was to run my local train that I'm going to have at some point. I don't know. I'll leave it as it is, because I'm not making a run right now. I'm just falling back and what? I don't know. I don't want to merge right now. I gotta wait until the E&R goes. I could merge right now, but it would make the E&R not run, and I want this dot, not this one, to be my home. I think it's kind of hard to tell, but there's some capacity for doinkerage in here for that local train that looks appealing to me. And to make my decisions with the INB, the WNR doesn't have enough money to survive on its own. I need to put it in. I was talking about, oh, I got $400 in there. Yeah, it's beginning to not look like enough. So I'm looking for a merger. I could do the merger at the end of the INB's turn. It could be an acquisition, in which case the INB dot becomes my home. That's not necessarily terrible. WNR has a lot of dots down here. As long as I'm running into a city like this one with the local, or this one, which looks very likely. So I don't think that's a terrible thing. Which train do I want to buy? Well, that's a good question. What does the 7 freight train do me? That's probably the first big question. Well, I no longer would have to go through here, which means the 7 freight train could come from here, or it could come from all the way out here where it's more valuable. It can't come from here very easily. That's not going to get me where I want to go. I mean, it could run up there. So I have a lot of possible routes. I would love to go across the board. I can't get into London with this company. Across the board would mean what? Well, I'm not going to make it from here. I might make it from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not good enough. Again, probably not from here. Not in any pleasant way. This isn't going to work. Yeah, so this is probably the best. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to need at least an 8 train. For me, what that means is I want to buy my local train with the I and B. And I have my $600. Of course, I fall back. And I got to think about my dot, which I probably want to put to support that freight train because the local train's harder to understand. And it's kind of a problem. So why is it a problem? Because I don't go where I want to go right now. Which is to say, even if I upgrade this, I'm probably not going to get the dot where I want it. What about here? 1, 2, 3, God, 4. I could get up there instead. That's possible. I think I'm going to hold off on my dot because I can't tell where the hell I want it. But I do have to do an upgrade. And let's see how much connection I can make to these because I think I want a lot of flexibility going through my home city. Only 3 types of Ys, and this is a problem. I've got this, which preserves getting into my Y city, but it doesn't get me out this way, which is one direction I'd love to be able to go. And if I have to go through here, I've got problems, but I could come out of here not easily. Yeah, I'm counting on coming out of here, but coming this way. I could come out of here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm in trouble if I'm having to take that route. So that doesn't look appealing. This doesn't quite do what I want. And of course, this just doesn't do it. That cuts me off. That's terrible. And I can't. I'm missing the piece I want, which is basically a 5 piece. That's why I'm missing it. None have more than 4. So I think the best I can do is Y it up. Which is not sufficient, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. At least I could physically make it. If that's the case, I know where my dot goes. It's got to go here, because I can't allow that to fall. Where like the lack of the usual brown upgrades really starts to cause problems for me, at least in this game. You know, that normally you can say, I don't know which way it's gonna go. I still want both of these. You know, I still want a full 6 connection if I could get it, but I'd be able to do stuff like, you know, slide in from here down directly or slide from here up, depending on what I played. Now, and you know, maybe I could come from here, well, I can do the across, but I would have to do that. I'm not sure I want this. This is one possible dot that I need. Another one appears to be this one. No, because the only entryway is, oh no, this is the WNR, yeah. The only entryway is from here. Although conceivably there could be something, where would it come from? From here. Reserve that dot. This is too unlikely that I'm going to actually have to go through there. Right? No. It is absolutely necessary that I go through there. Well, so no, it's not. I could come up this way, in which case these two dots become important to me, and this one. Yeah, I'm just going to reserve the dot. Maybe I get screwed, but I don't think this is too important to anyone. I hope. Just because it's bottled here, this is the only way through. If a break open happens here, it's possible one of these guys wants it, but I don't know. I may have found a reason not to use the optional dot. Not in this game, but in general. I'm trying to count my I and B dots. I have 3 on the board. Let's get this out of the way. 3 on the board that I see. I've already grabbed some of my WNRs, obviously. I have 3 more here. That gives me 6. I should have 1 more dot available. I'm not seeing any in here. One, two, three, four, five, six. 1 more for this. 1 more for that. So 2 are used up for the par and the stock value. 1 to track that over there, and that leaves me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, what am I missing? Is there an INR on here? Because I feel like I have not enough dots. So I have 1 in the par value. I have 1 on here. I don't have any up there. I have 1, 2, 3 here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There should be an extra dot somewhere. There it is. Great. Okay. So yeah. Which means get rid of the WNR dot and put that here, I guess. I'm never sure which one goes where. And where'd the stock value one go? That's the home base. That's open there. And then I have 1 more dot which I can use. And then the other dot remaining on the tray is the optional dot that I'm not using in this game, but I may in the next, and that has to fill this location. Now, it kind of sucks when you do a merger. You have to take the onboard dots. They even come, you know, if you have extra dots in your company charter, they come out of the company charter to go there. You have to maintain the stations that are already on the board if you possibly can, which may be less than optimal. I don't particularly think I need this station. I'm not even sure I need this one. You know, you can kind of understand why the company headquarters of one of the corporations has to go over. Obviously, I don't have enough money to buy me another choo-choo, but we're already up to almost killing the D trains. Anybody got a warranty left? Yeah, we still have one with a warranty left, but he's just about to run. Oh no, ENR is running first. I'm sorry. EB&H is running first, doesn't have a train. That warranty is actually going to come in useful. Somebody predicted, it may have been the designer. The name did not seem to match. Mike Hutton is the name here. That certainly was not the name on the YouTube, but he spoke as though he was the designer of the game. So I don't know. At least in terms of, like, you know, the way he expressed things, that was my impression. So whoever it was has a lot of experience with the game one way or another, and caught my error. But the warranty issue, he had predicted we would not see any warranties being, useful in this game. Well, we can see the train rush is big enough that they are indeed happening here for whatever that's worth. Okay. I think that is all that I can do with the INB at this point, which means we go over to that EB&H and it will crash the D's, I guess. Assuming it has enough. I mean, it has to have the cash too. Now, here's the other option. Whoa, what's this doing here? Did I not crash the C's? I did not crash the C's. I hope nobody ran a C. Crap. Alright, let me start looking to see if I fucked anything up. I'll do it in real time because what the hell. The F and E, or no, the L and H over there has a 7 on it. How many 7s are there? That's a good question. So there should be 2 F trains out. One of them I just bought over here. The second one was the L and H. I don't think I caused any problems because the L and H is over here. It just went, I think, right before. So I just missed that transition where the C's died and did not kill them off. So we've got a lot more trains coming off the board here. Oh, things. So my thought was, I could merge and then, last a little longer. WVR looks like it's in trouble, doesn't it? I put these C's on top because I knew they were going to go fast. But you can see the train rush still happens. It just comes later in the game and the players have less opportunity to do things to fix their problems. And speaking of not being able to do things to fix their problems, the E&H here starts the turn at 95. If I wanted to merge, I could do it there. But what's going to happen is he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shares that are going to be at 86 each. 5 times 86 is $430, 537. That won't buy me a train. Okay. That's failure number 1. Failure number 2 is I can trade my shares in 2 for 1. Well, that'll raise me $580. 680, 687. Failure number 2. This is a $700 train I have to buy. Right. My only other option is to try to merge. That's really probably not going to help me. I'll be reducing share value of both my companies. I will be combining this cash, but overall, I think I'm just screwed. This player has just fucked himself so completely. Okay, so he's just going to take his medicine and not try a merger here. This company goes bankrupt. It did run. I could lay some track, but I think I'm just out of the game at this point, so fuck it. Well, I'm not out of the game. Not entirely. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay some track for the NGC and any other open track I can play now. That's good enough. Okay. Right then. So and for the E&H and for all kinds of other companies that I might be starting. So this company has just gone out of, it's just going bankrupt. It keeps its $86 per share price. I didn't have to sell any of these. I'm not allowed to. I wasn't able to reduce my stock value on it. So he gets almost all his value, as does anyone else who's holding this crap, but that's pretty much nothing. So I get 86 times 5, $430 back in my bank account for this company that I crushed. Now, that makes little sense to me, right? I could go bankrupt and have lots of assets, great trains and everything, and I get nothing. I don't know what happened to that resources. And this is where the realism to me kind of breaks apart. It doesn't quite work for me. On the other hand, here, I feel like those shares should be wiped out. And that's what I did when I played 21 Moon and tried to make up rules for the bankruptcy of a company there. I did not leave you with $430 when you run the company into a failure. Now, the company does have some assets, right? But they would be sold off to creditors. You don't go bankrupt without there being creditors or something like that, right? But you could become unprofitable to the degree that you no longer make money. And that's kind of what I'm trying to argue here, is that this mechanism just does not make sense. It is a complete... there's a lot of things in this game where I feel like it's trying better, and it may not be the case. From what I heard from the designer, it's like he was looking more entirely at gameplay things that irked him in XX games, like in the 1830 series in particular, and that he wanted to avoid those. Whereas what I saw was, wow, he's designed a game that actually seems to hit more realistic aspects, but I gotta say the bankruptcy rules in both directions don't quite work for me. This kind of bankruptcy should wipe you out. I'm not sure what the other kind should do. The other kind is exactly how you end up in receivership. The stock is no longer valued, but the corporation still is fundamentally there. There's still enough materials, etc. So then there are two choices when a company is in that kind of bankruptcy. It's either sold off, and somebody else should be getting the stuff, including any trains they want to bid on or whatever, and tokens. And those should probably be auctioned. But there's got to be a concept of creditors for that to work. Now, that may be abstracted. That's fine. But this kind of bankruptcy is this company no longer operates. Its stock value should plummet to nothing. The other kind, you could make the argument that it still is a worthless company, that somehow these companies are up to their asses in debt, and that any failure would wipe them out. You could make that argument. You could also make the argument that the only reason it's bankrupt is because it's down here, and that's not a real value. It's that you can't represent zero, on the chart. Zero isn't a real value. You're talking about it becomes penny stock or whatever, but it could become really, really valuable in the end. And that would be, you never have a company go bankrupt just due to stock sales. Here's why. When you sell something on the stock market, right, there has to be a buyer, and you have to be willing to sell it. So there is a price associated with that stock. Nothing ever sells for zero. A stock might be down to 1/8 of a penny a share or whatever, and not be able to sell and be essentially worthless, but it still has a notional value as long as the company still can operate and run. And that's where I have a problem, is you should never be able to bankrupt a company by just selling off shares. Now, the one exception to that is companies leverage their own stock for their, and this is why I say there's an abstraction that could be in play. Companies leverage their own stock and their bonds, which may be represented in the stocks, in order to represent their debt. And here what we may be seeing is that this is actual debt rather than stocks. It doesn't act like debt for the most of the game, but maybe it becomes bonds instead. But when a company goes bankrupt in this kind of way, the creditors, including bondholders, generally don't get much. They do not get 90% of their value back. Anyway, rant off. Prediction on the warranty ends up correct after all, because the ENH was unable to buy a train. The ENR is going to run this without its warranty coming into effect. Neat, eh? But yeah, I mean, I don't feel like this guy got hosed anywhere near enough to account for mismanaging your company to the extent that you no longer can afford a running train. Stock value should probably, yeah, again, I think that there should be some sort of auctioning off of resources or whatever. Because there's some valuable resources that have just cleared up in a very weird sort of way, right? They have just, and this will not happen in most games by the rules, because it's very, very easy to avoid going bankrupt in this game. Mergers, etc. The problem is it's harder to do it when you can't run multiple trains off a single permit. So, yeah. This actually ends up a little harsh, but it ends up harsh in a way that's hard to control, and I can understand not wanting to do that. It may be hard to predict and really visualize that you're screwed, although I kind of knew he was screwed. And didn't do enough about it. So where am I? Who am I? How am I? Yeah, we're trying to figure out what to do with the ENR, who probably is going to be going into a merger at this point after he makes his run. I have a 30 a share run. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Not enough to buy me this. I got no shares in here. I'm not doing a forced purchase, and I will never do a forced purchase if I end up merging into a permanent company. How am I going to get money into here? Yeah. So I put a 7 on the ENR. Where's the LNH? It's up here. What is my 7 run going to look like is the question. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say I get this. So that's 240, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 240 and 150 is 390. If I swallow with the merged company, I have enough to buy that second train. That is the only way I'm going to come up with the cash to get that second train. Other than this 620 here, which is going to just crash me and I'll lose it. So I think what I need to do is I need to swallow that $300 and I need to merge my companies so that I can do another swallow later on. I'm regretting everything. I'm regretting this big 7 train on the LNH. Here's why. I'm looking at, because of the destruction that happened, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or possibly even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Either of which works. There's a dot open here. I've got the wrong company in charge. I think I hold. I do not do the merge yet. I will do the merge before the LNH goes. I can do that. And it has essentially the same issue. The only problem is, when does the LNH go? Is a G train going to be sold and destroy this and destroy half my stock value? Well, LNH goes here. No, LNH goes here. So I've got 4 companies ahead of me. N and E might be able to swallow and buy a train. Okay, that's a problem. Would be able to swallow and buy a train. Crap. I think I got to do the merge now. I don't want to lose that stock value. Okay. And as we start cleaning up, one more problem. I have, first of all, 2 people had ENR shares that they had to dump into the bank pool for $53 each, because they've already bought their WVR shares. Or something. Nah, that couldn't be it. I thought they had all, yeah, they spent all their money. They did not make money off their companies. Their companies swallowed instead of giving them enough cash to buy those shares. So they ended up losing some cash on them. because it's this thing swallowed. Now, here's the problem. I have an E&R half share here. It's worth 53 bucks. I can either take 53 bucks into my treasury. I know I'm good then, or I could pay 53 bucks, get that share, make some more money. So if it's close, well, no, because I'll be swallowing. Okay. So how much cash do I have on hand? I have 375, 385, 391. This is where it gets complicated. Okay, I have 391 bucks. A 7 run for the ENR will get me what? Yeah, I don't know. It'll get me at least 300 bucks, but like that's what I made this time, but I can probably make more than that. Well, a 7 run might be able to get me here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not quite. My headquarters is here. If it was here, I could be running out of here instead. But I have to go through this space now, which means I'll probably be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, maybe I'll be entering from this space so I get a little bit more money, because it doesn't really matter if I go through here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Okay. So I make 100, 240, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 390. Okay. 390. I have 300, 690, 700. I can afford to buy that share, so I want to do it. It's time for him to fail his second company. I laid some track here just to phone stuff over on that side because I don't think I'll be on that side of the board. There's only one company that'll be available for starting, WVR. And what hurt me here was not being able to hook up. Well, if I really need the WVR, I'll be hooking up that way. So that works fine. What is my cash situation? First of all, selling the shares, 132, clearly not enough. 680. Uh-oh, I exist. Oops. Oops. This is only a $700 train. I got the cash for this. Do I still want to lay that track? Gosh, what am I buying? I'm going to be buying a big damn express train. I don't think I'm going to be going there. Ruh-roh. Well, how about that? Damn. Okay. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to be running what? An express train which can go off map. I could get to London. Brisket goes to London. All right, that looks pretty sweet. So an express, I'll be running, what kind of express? It looks like it will be a 5-6 express. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5. Not bad. Not bad at all. Another option is up this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I don't really see why I would not take this. Which means I want to upgrade this city instead. And I want to get a dot. I want to get a dot in London because I can work my way around the lack of London. I could be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, you know, all kinds of things. I gotta be careful. I gotta run through there. That's actually a problem, but okay. I can't upgrade track if I'm going into London. So this is all I get to do. The other option would have been actually upgrade this because I have to go through that and dot there to make sure that I have an easy route to London. But you know what? Let's do this. Okay. Now we get to do something we haven't seen before, which is the 2-for-1 merger. Again, I don't have enough money to buy the train if I do this. But if I do the 2-for-1 merger, I'm worth $680. 705. Which means I'll be able to buy the train. Okay. So what happens is all shares get offered up like they would be mergers. So I have 50% here. Well, now I have 20% in an option share, which I will buy and keep the presidency. This guy, he will have an option share. No, he will have a full share in the company treasury. These guys each get an option share on them. This is not what they were expecting. At least they have some money from the last company that merged in order to save themselves. And this actually doesn't affect the stock value at all. Everything else stays the same. It's just this is... Oh, I think it might reset this, but they're at the same value. I'd have to look that up. It might reset this to the current value of the corporation in case it has to do this shit again. But basically, I get $680. I get a full capitalization on here, and this money turns into $705. And then I get to buy myself a train, and I want the kind of train I can run because anything else would be stupid. But I have now killed the D's. That moves us to the second operating round in this series. And you know what? I ain't quitting yet. Because we want to see how this shakes out. What happens because of it. We can see who ended up okay out of it. Well, people who swallowed. People who were set up in pretty good shape and took a swallow. Who didn't end up too well in it? Well, the people who are counting on the mergers or whatever. I mean, this is not good. Yeah, I'm up at 182. That's not... No, that's actually pretty good compared to the FDR. So he ended up pretty well. But the people who really didn't do well were the people who were not well planned and set up for this. And that's mainly him. He's just not in good shape. But he ended up with a company out of it, which was not what I was expecting. I thought I was just going to end up with some share value. Everybody paid for their WVRs. Stock values are out. Hey, somebody made it up into the... You can't just drop one of their shares and hurt their stock value anymore. Not that that's really a part of this game, but it's another feature to prevent the ability to just crash stock values if a corporation is well enough or poorly enough run. Which is to say, it becomes hard to knock a company down to bankrupt just by selling it out. Generally, it's failure to give dividends, which, again, I don't know what the bankruptcy is supposed to mean in this game. It does not work right. But it doesn't work right in most 18xx games, which is, I think, why the 1830 model of putting the personal liability on the president is just such a weird thing, but it makes it so that the president has to pay for the train if he's mismanaged the company well enough, and he has to, pay out of pocket. And if he can't, then the game just ends because it's kind of in this it's in this state that's kind of like, well, how do we go forward with this? Well, that creates the craziest thing, which is trying to engineer a win by going bankrupt with one of your corporations and keeping it so that you can't sell the shares for it. And it's just the weirdest. It's one of those, wow, I want to win in this stupidest way possible just because I can. And I'm totally addicted to that idea. I've never seen it done, but I've heard of it being done. All right. And that'll show you how incompetent I am. It's something I want to do. But, it's actually, I haven't really worked at it too hard. I haven't really tried. I've been like, I could see doing it, but you lose the game if you fail. Like, you lose bad. And you probably don't win the game by doing it. You can probably go bankrupt and place well, but actually winning the game by going bankrupt is hard in 30. Like, it's a really hard problem. And I'm just not someone who chases after hard problems diligently enough. Yeah. So my money's on this guy having won. But I want to see how some more of the train shakeup goes. Do we have anybody else with a problem? You know what? We actually don't. So at this point, I'll still run through the rest of the operating rounds. But I think basically what happened was I spent so much time on this video that we didn't get through all the operating rounds that I was counting on. And I still spent 2 hours on the damn video. So, but all the same, you know, it's coronavirus days. Who cares? Speaking of which, I got a little chit chat to have with people, I think. But I'll load this up.